Okay, well, we've got the parts arrived from our friends at Witch Doctors, which includes the brand new manifold, and you can see the difference in the new manifold. That's it there. So we'll be installing that. This is the old part that came out, which basically came apart. And the aluminium separated from it when I can get it out. That whole thing just basically disassembled. So it's the new part there. That's the old part. So thanks to our friends at Witch Doctors for supplying these at a cost, of course, but nonetheless, at least as a Victory owner, we can still get parts from our friends at Witch Doctors. So thanks, guys. I will repair this one, so it'll be a backup, not only for myself, but one of the other bikes. And I got my O-rings as well through Witch Doctors. That all came in the one package, thankfully. All right, cheers. Okay, so there's my new manifold, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this specialised silicone grease, which is designed specifically for dive masks and the like, and I'm going to give it a fairly generous coating on the inside of each boot so that it just slips on there and makes a snug fit, and that way the installation process will just go one step more smoothly. The other thing that I will do is I will lube up the O-ring with the same silicone grease. So we've got that, when that goes in, it will make good contact with the throttle body, and this is what we do with O-rings on underwater housings to make sure they seal properly. So that's what I'll do with the O-rings on this, to make sure it seals as well. Okay, so this is pretty straightforward. You don't have to be an idiot to mess this up, but I do have two O-rings there just in case there is an issue. Shouldn't be, but press it down neatly, set it in there. It beds in really nicely. We'll just make sure we go around that with the silicone grease. That's it. Okay, so that part, that's the preparation for installation. So we'll go ahead and put it on. Okay, apart from various other rubber components that actually were broken and frayed, is this and this adapter here, which came off this breather mechanism. It was there, so that's actually totally cracked. So I went and bought some heavy grade fuel hose, and I've replaced that with this, and now that will not leak any air or suck any air out. The other part I've made up is I've used a brass tee in here instead of plastic, and this will go onto the rear cylinder throttle body, and then this will go to this adapter here and fit into there. So once it gets into focus, so come on, it's not playing with me. There we go. So yeah, so this whole mechanism now, that goes into there, and this part here that I've made up, that'll all go together like that. So once I reinstall it, it should all be nicely airtight, one would hope. Yeah, we'll see. Okay, so the next thing to do is remove the cloth that I've got in there, making sure that nothing can fall in, and we'll start the process. I'm going to use silicone grease on this manifold as well. So this this part here will attach to the O-ring, so I'm just going to give that a light grease around there, just so that we don't compromise the O-ring and we get a nice seal on it. Okay, I'll get this cloth out of here and we'll get our boot. We'll put these two screws facing the other side, or the two adjustments. Now this came out from this side, so it should go back in from this side easily enough, I would think. People have reported this as being a pain in the ass to do. And yes, it does look, it's like it's going to be slightly difficult. But I don't think it's going to be unduly difficult. Alright, that's snug on this side. Okay, so that's how easy that is. That was just a snack to get that to fit down in there like that. That's perfectly fitted now. So let's just have a look at it from the other side as well. I've just pushed it down neat. And from this side it looks equally good. Got to be happy with that. So yeah, as long as I can get to these, which I can, just with a metric socket, tighten them up, or even a little screwdriver. That one can go around a bit. This one can come around a bit too. You can get a screwdriver onto those now. Tighten them up. Okay, so we might as well tighten those up first. Okay, so let's tighten these boots up. We won't overly tighten them, but we'll give them a good reasonable amount. We don't want this leaking ever again. Okay, that's reasonably snug. This part here, this boot, actually I didn't replace this part, and it sort of looks like it's almost compromised with a crack there. And to be honest, I'm inclined to want to get it and replace it. So you can see here, this little guy here, which is on the front of the front manifold, it's got a little hairline crack in it there. Other than that, it looks okay. So it's got a bit of a crack there. So I'm going to try and find this tomorrow to replace this before I put all this assembly back together, because that's, yeah, you can't put that back in like that, not when everything else is new. Well, this is sort of the quintessential moment of truth, as they say. To get this back in, fitted, without too much drama, up into there. And it's just that easy. Well, you've got to get all the bolts lined up yet. So that's the trick, to get this bolt back in up here. Alright, here we are on the other side, and this is pretty straightforward. I can just push this one through, get those hoses out of the way, and then get it started. Okay, so the issue was this little blue fitting up here. I've just actually had to re-engineer that. What I've done is I've used some heat shrink on it just to reinforce it because it had a little split. I used heat shrink on it. I firstly super glued it, then I put heat shrink, and then I put tape on it, and then a cable tie to hold the tape. So hopefully that won't be a problem anymore. And if it is, well, I'll just have to work out some way of getting it off the front. Okay, so we're back to now trying to get our airbox and the manifold snugged up together. If we can get these bolts in, that would be just wonderful. At least get this side in. Come on, up you go. Feels like it's going. Okay, I'll get an Allen key onto that. Okay, so this is an Allen key I've cut down and made it short. Okay, I've managed to get a socket on this one, and it's going in, and it's not cross-threaded because it's just going in with finger pressure. So I won't do it up all the way. I'll just get it 3/4 of the way in. At least I've got it started. And then I'll come back onto this front one. I need a swivel head for this to get it in there. Okay, I'm not going to bore you with the details of how difficult this little process is, but this is probably the hardest part. This is probably the hardest part of the whole process, to be honest, and that is getting these Allen keys back tight. You have to use one of these type of Allen keys that have got the rounded off end, which helps turning these up. At least you can get them started. So that's a godsend. But they're going in without too much of a fight. So I just have to go back to the little short one that I made. So this is pretty much, the other thing to note is that I undid the 2 clamps on the boots so that I had a bit of flexibility and movement on the boot. And I didn't put Loctite on these, but I didn't have it on in the factory. There's quite a long thread, and I've just dropped the Allen key. Okay, we're just going to get the last of these hoses, breather hoses on. Okay, hook him up there. This is quite a tight fit. I've gone to the rubber here to make sure that it doesn't crack again. So everything has been replaced up in here now. So that's the new boot. These are all new. That's been repaired. These lines are all pretty good. We'll just redo the wiring, put the ignition system back on, and tidy up the other side. We're done. Okay, I noticed a little bit of wear on this fuel rail here. This is the fuel rail to the injectors, and notice a little bit of wear there, and the same on this side. So what I'm doing is I'm wrapping these in cable tie just to protect that. I don't know why that would be compromised. There's nothing that hits it, even when I go full throttle, nothing touches it, so I'm not sure what's going on there, whether that was like that at the factory, but we'll do something about it anyway. Okay, we're entering the home stretch on this job, and just the ignition coils to be mounted up there. So we'll do that now, and then we'll start to put the rest of it back together, and that should be it. Basically, this wire here now goes up to the RFID, which controls the ignition on and off. So this is just a piggyback plug to the standard ignition switch, which goes in here, and that'll just plug in. That'll just plug in there, up the right way, of course. That'll just plug in there like that. So then you just go keyless, because you had that one wire. Makes everything else obsolete. Wiring, that it goes in behind everything. So we'll just get one of these started, so we can hang the whole coil system up. Okay. All right, let's get all of these Allen keys in to their respective homes. Okay, last stages. We just plug that in where it used to be, like that. That's all snug. Leave that fuse hanging, push that wire up there, slide this guy up in, twist him around, get the hole lined up. This is such an easy part to reinstall. It's a no-brainer. We'll tighten that up nice and snug. Okay. And you can see here what I've done with these is they're permanently fixed to the engine. So even if they come loose, which they do regularly, and drop out, you don't lose them, and you'll just end up hanging there. So it's a good idea to check these every time you service your oil. Just make sure they're still tight, because they're just that plastic plug there, Teflon plug rather. Okay, so that's all back together. That's in, all that's plugged in. That's all neat. Okay, now's my chance to go over everything and double check it. Okay, so I've got all my parts laid out here that are going back, not necessarily in any order, but yeah, we'll just start to assemble this now. We're in the home stretches. Put my throttle kit back together. That's all bolts are in there. The tank covers, 3 bolts for the tank, 4 bolts, 4. Yep, no parts left over. That is a pretty sight. Tools in there. So there it is. Now the real test will be when I go to turn it on and start, if it runs. We'll do that. All right, let's see how we go. I would call that a success. I don't know about you guys, but in my book, that's a done deal. Just pay the man. It's done. Well, that was good. Happy with that. There we go. That's a throttle body boot replacement on a Victory. Thank you for Witch Doctors for helping me out with that part.